The eCom Q4 Summit was created to prove that any seller can experience a highly profitable fourth quarter with access to the right tips, strategies, and techniques. There's no need to struggle trying to figure out what to sell, where to find it, or how much to list it for. The summit covers everything from sourcing to listing to marketing and streamlining your operations. It doesn't matter if you're selling on one platform or multiple platforms like Amazon, eBay, Shopify, Walmart. And it doesn't matter if you're a new seller or an experienced seller. The information in the summit will help you get sale after sale after sale after sale during the busiest shopping season of the year, if you take massive action. So welcome to the eCom Q4 Summit.
Hi, I'm Cyndi Thomason, and I am the author of Profit First for e-commerce sellers and also the founder of Bookskeep, an e-commerce accounting firm. And we are also a Profit First firm. And I want to talk to you today about profit and inflation. Profit is my favorite subject, and inflation not so much. So let's dive in and see what we can learn about how to get through these inflationary times. So we're talking about 2022 and Q4 and how you can make a profit during this Q4 with inflation and economic uncertainty. There's all this talk about possibly a recession. And I want to tell you that none of that matters. There are some key things to think about with regard to inflation, and we'll cover that. But running a profitable business is something that you want to do every day, and setting yourself up using Profit First will help you get through any type of uncertainty. I can assure you that when things are booming, it's a different kind of uncertainty, and Profit First helps with that. And when things are slow and costs are high, Profit First helps you with that. So I want to give you the details about that, but also talk to you about some specific issues that are relevant in today's situation. So here are some of the challenges that you may be facing. Maybe your supply chain is broken. Maybe you're seeing increased cost of your products or increased shipping cost. And all of that leads to having reduced gross margins. Perhaps your advertising costs are increasing. What I'm seeing with my clients just blows my mind at how it's increasing. We know interest rates are going up. I recorded this on a day that they just increased interest rates another 3/4 of a point. And everybody's seeing their operating cost increase as well. So I'm going to come back and touch on each of these areas at the end. But I want to tell you that Profit First is the answer to setting up your business to be healthy so that you can overcome whatever challenges you have and climb to the top of that mountain. So we're going to focus on Profit First because that's the foundation. And then I've got some specific things to share with you about this time of inflation. Profit. Profit is when you have profit and you have cash in the bank, true profit, not just profit on paper, and you have cash in the bank, then you are setting yourself up to weather whatever storm there is, or to take advantage of whatever opportunity that there is. It wasn't too many years ago, just a couple of years ago, when folks were facing what to do about the pandemic, and all of a sudden the demand for their product was going crazy. And I can tell you those clients that had profitable businesses and had profit in their bank accounts were able to increase their inventory orders and take advantage of that increased demand. In this time of increasing cost and inflation, those people that have profit in their bank accounts are in a position to be able to weather the storm of increased cost and develop a strategy to actually put themselves in a better position to come out on the other side stronger. Profit gives you options. And so what we want to do is set our businesses up so that we generate profit. And I want to explain that it's profit comes from our behavior. It is not necessarily logic. It comes from what we do in our business. And so I want you to understand that behavior. And we're going to start with that. We're going to start with the why behind our behavior. And then I'm going to teach you how you can move forward and set up some behaviors that are going to ensure that you have profit at the end of every day. Okay, so the behavioral piece is actually Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law was developed by Cyril Northcote Parkinson in the 1950s. He was a Navy officer in the British Royal Navy. He was an economist, and he studied how the bureaucracy that existed in the British Navy, how when there were more resources available, they used them up. And I like to use the example of toothpaste as an example of this Parkinson's law, which in short just says you use what you got. If there are more resources, you will use those resources. So if you have a full tube of toothpaste, maybe when you go to brush your teeth, you use that full length of your toothbrush. Like in this picture, you put a full bead of toothpaste on your toothbrush. If you are nearly out of toothpaste and you're getting near the end and you're not sure when you're going to be at that store, you will just use a little dab of toothpaste and you think, okay, this is good enough for today. You think, okay, I can make do for a couple more days when I get to the store. That's what Parkinson's law is. If you look at something and there's an abundance of it, you use more of it. If you look at the resource and there's a small amount of it, then you use less of it. That is the driving force behind our behavior for many things. It's a driving force for our time. It's a driving force for money. Any resource that you have, if you feel like there's a surplus of it, you're apt to use more of it. So that's the behavioral piece. In addition to that, we have this formula that we use for business that that we're taught very early on. Our profit and loss is organized this way: sales minus expenses equals our profits. And what that does is it traps us into having to make do with what profit is left at the end of the day. When the better formula would be sales minus profit equals your expenses. Now, in this formula, what happens is we take care of ourselves first. We take care of setting aside profits for our business, profits that we will use to grow the business, possibly have available for a rainy day. But it also includes things like paying yourself and making sure that you and your family are taken care of. We created our businesses because we had a desire to change our life some way. Maybe it was to make more money. Maybe it was to have more flexibility to spend with our family. But the reality is many businesses are created, and then instead of achieving that dream, people are saddled with the burden of trying to figure out how to get profit out of their business. It doesn't have to be that way. If you simply take your sales and you take your profit out, and then you run your business on the expenses that are left, it forces some discipline that really puts you in a good position. So we've switched around that formula. The math works either way, but we've switched it around so that we're taking care of ourselves, and then what's left will take care of expenses. Now, I want to get started and explain to you how this works. Now, I talked to you about Parkinson's law and how we use what we got, and when we've got an abundance of a resource, we use more of it. Well, let's apply that to our bank balances. Um, how many of you check your bank balances on your phone, every day? You pull up your phone and you go, okay, how's it looking? And based on what you see, you think, okay, it's going to be a good day. There's money in the account. I'm gonna be all right. Or you possibly are seeing a low balance and you have to get started scrambling with figuring out, okay, how can I put off some payments? How can I get some more money in? Can I go to the bank and borrow some money? Do I have to pull some out of my savings? It really dictates how we behave when we look at our bank balances. And so let's use that. That's a good thing. You've got it right at your fingertips. You can, at any point in time, pull up your banking dashboard and know the status of your business. I get the question all the time of, well, can't we just do profit first in our books, in QuickBooks or Xero, as opposed to setting up extra bank accounts, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But I want you to realize your behavior of checking your bank account. The bank has done all that work. And if you organize your bank accounts in a way that you can see a snapshot of your business, then you immediately know what's going on without having to go log into another program, hope that it's up to date, and get information. So your bank dashboard is going to be critical for you, and we're going to use those balances to understand how our business is performing. So here's what I want you to do from a quick start perspective. Now, in my book, I go into a lot more detail and there's a lot more accounts. When I work with clients, we customize exactly how we work with those businesses based on their financial situation. But I don't know your financial situation, so I'm going to start out very conservatively. I like to describe it as a beach entry, that we're going to walk into that water from the beach, as opposed to walking to the edge of a cliff and diving in. We're going to take it slow, in other words, okay? So most of you probably already have a business bank account, and that's where all the money goes in and where all the money goes out. We're going to continue to use that, and that's where your operating expenses are going to be paid for. So when your money goes into that account, say your Amazon deposit, or maybe you're having Shopify deposits made regularly, wherever your source of money is coming into that account, what we're going to do is, on an every 2-week basis, we're going to then look at how much money came in and figure out, all right, if I got $10,000 in over this past 2 weeks, how much does that represent in terms of inventory that I just sold? So if I sold $3,000 worth of products, then I will move $3,000 out into a separate bank account that we're going to call inventory. Now, in a service-based business, that might be payroll. That's what I use, is payroll. But for a product-based business, typically most Amazon or e-commerce businesses are product-based, then you will put that money in a bank account for inventory. This is the money that needs to be protected so that you can stay in business and buy more inventory. As long as you're putting more replenishment cost back in that account so that you can buy your next round of inventory, you're setting yourselves up for keeping that machine flowing, rolling, okay? Now, I said we're going to switch around the equation, and here's where we do it. We are going to move 1% of your money that you took in, and we're going to put it into profit. And that immediately makes you profitable. It sets you up to have profit going into a bank account. Now, I know you may be doing better than that. And if you are, and you want to adjust that percentage up a little bit, that's fine. But if you're um, using debt in your business, or finding it hard to get through the end of the month with money that you have coming in, then this 1% is going to be a big number for you. And you're going to need to look at what you can do to decrease your operating expenses so that that 1% can build up in this account. All right. So quickly to recap, the money comes into your operating, your business checking account that you've already got. You're going to set up a new checking checking account for inventory. The profit account could be a savings account. Most banks aren't offering much interest, so if you want to make them both checking accounts, that's fine. You're going to create those two new accounts. And then when the money comes in every 2 weeks, let's just use the Amazon every 2 week cycle, you get your payout from Amazon. You're going to look at what you sold and figure out your cost of goods for what your sales were for that 2 weeks, and you're going to pull that out and put it into inventory. Then you're going to take 1% of what you sold and you're going to put it in profit. That's what I'm asking you to do. Now, why do we do that? Well, first of all, inventory has a very different cash flow cycle than your operating expenses. And what tends to happen is you have to pay out big chunks of money for inventory, and then there's a long period of time where you may not have to buy inventory, and then suddenly there's another big chunk of money that has to go out. So the cash flow for inventory will be different for every product-based business based on your sales. It will probably be different for each product that you have if you have multiple products. So you want to get in the habit of setting that money aside, because if you want to continue to buy that product, you need to take the money that you got from selling the last batch of products and put it aside, so that you're not scrambling, having to borrow money or take money out of another account to be able to fund your inventory. If all of the money is in one checking account, it's really hard to see if you're going to have enough money to make that next inventory buy. So by pulling it out and setting it aside in a separate inventory account, you'll be able to see how that account is growing. And as your sales are growing and you're ready to actually make the next purchase, you'll see that you've got the funds that have built up there to fund that inventory buy. And you're not going to have to put it on a credit card and then pay it out over time, because you want to be building it up. You want to be your own bank, especially in these times where interest rates are growing. So understand that inventory has a different cash flow than your operating expenses. And that's one reason we want to separate it out. We want to be able to see it and understand it, and also be able to see and understand if we have other expenses like payroll. A payroll account, a separate payroll account could be helpful. This is my team at a meeting, at a training that we did. So if you don't have, if you're a online business that is not product based, payroll or contractors may be the thing that you have to replenish and add to your business. So you could use inventory or payroll interchangeably there, just depending on the nature of your business. The point is, we want those things separated out so that we can really start to understand our operating expenses. Our operating expenses are typically more cyclical in nature. They are, we typically pay, our warehouse rent, our insurance. Those kinds of things have typically a month by month payment type situation, subscriptions for your tools, your software tools. So we want those things to be in a separate account where we can see month by month how those expenses are trending. Are we able to see that we are keeping those operating expenses within a decent range? Are they staying in line? And when you have that mixed up with things like inventory and payroll, then it's hard to understand that, because there'll be this big blip where, inventory is growing, 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 or payroll's growing, growing, growing. Those funds for those expenses are growing. And then when you pay them out, then you're down to a little bit of money. It's hard to see the cash flow if it's all together. So separating it into a separate bank account, your operating expense bank account, will allow you to see what those trends are with those expenses. Now, cash flow is a rhythm. And so what I want to explain to you is the rhythm that you're going to be using. And I recommend twice a month or every 2 weeks. If you are an Amazon seller, then, and that's the primary place where you are getting your revenue, then go with the Amazon cycle of your payout, and that'll be every 2 weeks. If you are getting funds in on a more daily basis, because maybe you sell on a platform like Shopify, and those funds are paid out a couple days behind, but on a daily basis, then you might want to just pick 2 days a month that are going to be your rhythm for doing these allocations. So the frequency applies to taking those allocations. So the money is going to show up in your bank account on a certain day based on your Amazon payout, or you're going to pick a day, one towards like the 10th of the month and one towards the 25th of the month, so that you can see that they're a couple of weeks apart, and you'll look at those the money in your account on those days. Now, that's for people that are not selling on Amazon. People that are Amazon centric, you're going to use your Amazon payout, okay? So whatever your day is, your 2 days a month, roughly, you're going to look at your bank account and do your allocations. So that's one rhythm. Twice a month, you're going to look at your bank account, roughly. Some months in Amazon will have 3 payments because of the every 2 weeks, there's actually 26 weeks in a month. So we have to make up for a couple. So, but every couple of weeks, you're going to look at the money that's in your bank account, and you're going to do that allocation process that I just recommended to you. So that's the first rhythm that I want you to know. The next rhythm is quarterly. So you've been putting money in your bank account for profit, and that's building up. And every quarter, we're going to have a special day. And the last day of the quarter, you're going to look at the balance in your profit account, and you're going to distribute it. You are going to take some of that money out. Now, the profit account has 2 purposes. One of the purposes is to reward you, and then the other purpose is our rainy day fund. So let's talk about that rainy day fund. I mentioned at the beginning, when you in 2020, when there was so much confusion about the pandemic and how that was going to impact sales, people that had a profit rainy day fund, a profit account, they were able to take advantage of growing sales during that time period. That's because every quarter, when they look at that profit account, they're leaving half of it in that account to grow and to be there for a rainy day, or to take advantage of an opportunity. The other half of the money you're taking out of the business, and you're using it to do something to celebrate started, and you want to celebrate the fact that you have started and your business is profitable. This is kind of equivalent to if you are investing in the stock market in a particular company that pays dividends, and every quarter you get a dividend check. This is the dividend check every quarter that you get, and you get to go out and do something fun with it. And I encourage you, if you have a family, do something to bring your family in as well. Families end up missing us because we're so busy in our businesses that we don't always get to do the fun things with them. And so as a result, if you can include them in some of the fun, then that celebration they can start to see, hey, dad's working hard or mom's working hard so that we can have these kind of fun things. So that's the quarterly aspect of the distribution. Now let's talk about credit cards. Credit cards, I think, should be used the same way that you use your bank accounts. Just as I've recommended having a separate bank account for operating expenses and inventory expenses, I recommend you do the same thing with credit cards. So if you have a one credit card that you're using now, just get another one and designate one of the cards to be used for inventory and one of them to be used for your operating expenses. And typically in Profit First, if you've read Mike Michalowicz' original book, what you will see is that he doesn't recommend credit cards. He recommends debit cards. I take a different position. E-commerce businesses, you guys are masters at using credit card points. And so to give that up would be like cutting off your right arm. So I suggest that you go ahead and use credit cards, but you use them in conjunction with your bank accounts. So if you're going to be putting charges on that credit card, say for inventory, you've got a $15,000 inventory purchase you're getting ready to make. Look at that bank account and see, have I accumulated $15,000? And if you haven't, then perhaps you're not allocating enough and you need to up the allocation. This is a typical thing that happens as you're growing and you're increasing your inventory buys over time because your demand is growing. So that replenishment amount may not be enough and you want to do replenishment plus 10%. The fact is you just want to make sure that you're not getting yourself in a position where your credit card debt is going to be so much higher than what you can afford to pay with the bank accounts that you have. So credit cards are something that you can use, but separate them out and tie them in, at least in your mind, to those bank accounts to be sure that as you're putting expenses on those cards, that you have the cash in the bank to cover those cards. And I recommend paying your credit cards every time you do an allocation, so that if you're allocating every time Amazon pays, then go ahead and take the money and pay your credit card at that point in time. Okay, so I always get these questions, so I want to cover them. What about debt? Well, first of all, using credit cards is a way of using debt, and I just explained how I think that's okay. But if you're in a situation where you have a lot of debt already, how do you get out of it? Well, first of all, you need to understand how you're doing from a gross margin perspective. And most of the time, when our gross margins are too low, we end up having to borrow money to help fund our business. So the first thing to do is look at what's causing that debt. And what can you do to boost your margins so that you have more money to help pay down that debt? Secondly is in that rainy day fund, the profit account, we want to keep building that rainy day fund. I don't want you to use that to pay down debt. Instead, I want you to take that celebration money that you're going to take and use 90% of that half that you're taking out and apply that to your debt. The debt snowball method that Dave Ramsey talks about works really well. Look at the debt that you can pay off quickest and pay that off. If you've got small, high interest debt, a small amount of high interest debt, you might want to pick that first. But get a strategy around paying off that debt, and you use your profit account celebration money to start reducing that debt. But you're also at the same time working on not building that debt. So get yourself in a situation where you're cutting your operating expenses, you're improving your gross margins so that you don't have to continue to grow the debt. We want to stop building the debt and use that profit celebration money to pay down the debt. Then I recommend that when you go into using profit first, that you transition. And I use this picture here of the beach entry. I've talked about it before. The biggest mistake that I see people make when they transition over to using profit first is they set up all five initial bank accounts that I talk about in my book. And then they go start funding them all at the highest levels possible. And they don't take into account that there's an inventory payment coming next week and you haven't really set that money aside. So that's why I recommend this quick start method of not trying to do all the accounts at first. Get your inventory account or your payroll account set up first, set up a profit account, get that working, do that for a quarter. Then if that's working well for you, then add maybe your owner pay account or a tax account, get that working, then add the next account. That beach entry allows you to minimize having to just switch money around for no reason. Um, when you're moving in this direction and all of a sudden you see, well, I've got a big payment coming due and I've just moved all this money. Now I got to move it back. What I hear clients say is, well, this doesn't work. Well, no, it doesn't work because you tried to do too much too soon. You dove off the cliff. What works is taking it slow and letting yourself acclimate to the water as you walk in slowly. Even if you are flush with cash right now and think you could go full tilt into this, I recommend going slow and doing the quick start method for 3 months. Then you've learned the process. Then you can see what bank accounts are building up and what aren't, where you may have weakness in your business. Then you can start to add accounts. So this beach entry, just remember, we want to go slow and acclimate. And then profit distributions. What do I do with my profit distributions? Can I just plow it back into my business? Well, that's not recommended, because what you're doing in that situation is, rather than taking money out as your reward for owning the business, you're putting it back into the business. And so the business is operating from the standpoint of not giving you any kind of reward. And I can tell you, when investors look at your business, pay, maybe to buy it, if you're not taking profit out, and you've become reliant on putting the money back in, you're not building a profitable business. And that habit is a hard one to break. And if something were to happen where you couldn't run your business and you had to hire someone to do it, then you're putting yourself in a situation of having to adjust the whole way your business works. Profit is a habit, and you need to get in the habit of making a profit and taking the money out. Okay, I promised you we would talk about some of these unique challenges that are happening with Q4 2022. You may be experiencing broken supply chain issues. You may have increased shipping cost. Perhaps there's increased cost of products and you're seeing reduced gross margins. So here are a few things that you can do to deal with those issues. First of all is look at your pricing. Is your pricing where it needs to be? I read recently that 85% of sellers have reported that their prices have increased, but only 70% have increased their prices to their consumers. So maybe you're in that 15% and you need to start playing around with what you can do to start increasing your prices. Okay. And that's always a situation where you want to test and watch and adjust. You can't go out there just and raise prices a certain amount without really observing what's happening. So pay attention to what you're doing there, test it, and and it may be that some of your products need price adjustments and others don't. And that's another thing I want you to think about is how is your portfolio of products? How is that mix performing? Typically, what we see is that there are some products that are performing really well and other products that are not performing well. And if you're tying up your cash in keeping products in stock that are not giving you that 30% gross margin or more, then you're tying up that cash at a time when you really could be using it better for another product. So look at how each of your products are performing. You may have a good gross margin overall for your business, but some products are really performing at like 60% and some are performing at like 12%. If you've got products that are performing in a low range, then you're probably not making enough money to pay for the advertising. So if you weren't restocking those products and you weren't paying for the advertising for those products, they're not contributing to your bottom line. What if you use that cash on those products that are really performing much better? So evaluate your portfolio mix and make sure that you're at 30% for each product. Okay, now I also want you to think about these expenses that are your operating expenses, advertising cost, interest rates, all of those things are going up right now. We're seeing it, advertising go up to more than double what it was just a few years ago. So what do you do about that? Well, first of all, be smart about how you're using your advertising dollars. Advertising should be tied to your profit margin and should be tied to your inventory stock. So as I mentioned before, if you've got a product that's maybe delivering a 12% gross margin and you're spending 12% on advertising, then right there, you know that you're not selling, you're not putting anything in your pocket at the end of the day there. It's all going to advertising. I also see clients that um, will be that are advertising products and accelerating the sales of products and their inventory is low. So if you can look at your advertising for each product and how that margin is and what your stock is, and make sure that you're applying your advertising dollars to those things that generate good margin and that you have plenty of. Be sure you cut off advertising for inventory that's out of stock or that you're low on stock. There's no reason to accelerate a stock out, okay? So pay attention to your advertising and get really smart with how you're using it. I like for folks to consider the media efficiency ratio. Basically, you're going to take your revenue and you're going to divide it by your ad spend and do that month by month. Get that percentage, that ratio month by month. Is that ratio staying in check at a number that is affordable for you? I have seen clients who have spent $200,000 on ads to generate an increased $200,000 on ads to generate $90,000 in increased revenue. That is a very inefficient media ratio. Why would you spend an extra $110,000 that wasn't generating profit for you or product sales? So understand what that media efficiency ratio is. It's a simple calculation you can pull off of your books, or you can look at the dollars that you spend simply through your bank accounts if you don't have a set of books. Revenue divided by ad spend month by month. What's that number look like? It's going to be unique to you. The point is you need to track that month by month and make sure that it's making sense for you. If it's not making sense, then dig into which products you're selling that is eating up those advertising dollars, and are they actually generating margin? Now's the time to be looking for low interest debt. If you've become reliant on credit cards, start talking to your bank, looking for places where you can get interest rates that are better than credit card rates, because we know they're going up. As I said, they've already went up another 0.75% today. Interest will eat your margins. And so look for ways to put that debt, consolidate that debt in something that's as low interest as possible. And then finally, every quarter, go through an exercise of what we call cut, reduce, or keep for your OPEX. You can simply look at your bank statements or your credit cards that you use for your OPEX account, see how you're spending those dollars, and look at each line and say, do I really need this? It may be that you've bought a subscription to something 6 months ago that didn't work out. Call and cancel it. Or it may be that you're on a premium plan and you don't need the premium plan anymore, so you can reduce it. If you've got to have it, if it's adding value to your business, by all means, keep it. But go through this exercise every quarter. This is not just an inflation time. Everybody should do this every quarter. When new clients come on with us and we do this exercise the first time, we typically cut out $1,800 a month in their operating expenses. So there's money to be found there. So cut, reduce, keep. In the promo that I did for the summit, I said that one of the questions that I get all the time around Q4 is, what do I do with my money that's in my bank account, all that extra money? I hope you have the most amazing Q4, and I hope there's money left in your bank account at the end of Q4. And I hope that you've put in place these extra accounts so that you're accumulating profit. And I hope that those there are extra dollars sitting in your bank account, your operating expense bank account, if you worked it the way we talked about. So there's extra money there. What do I do? The first thing that I usually get is people want to pay off all their credit cards. And I prefer that you work it a different way. I prefer that you quit adding to those credit cards and you start working to pay them down, but you do that very carefully, and you set yourself up for the lean months by actually moving that extra money into another bank account. And I'm going to call it the drip account. I talk about it in my book. The drip account is where you put extra money aside during your windfall season, and then you drip it out into your operating expenses during the slower times. And then as you do that, if you've set up, like if you had credit card debt and you're wanting to start to reduce that, you could start to add a little extra from that drip account to start accelerating the debt payment. You're going to be accelerating the debt payments also with your quarterly profit account celebration money. So you're going to be working on your debt that way. And you're going to be taking that slow, and you're going to be doing it responsibly, but you're going to keep that cash preserved for your own use, to use carefully month by month in dripping it out, to keep yourself from getting back into the debt situation. So many times what I see with clients is they get all that money in at the end of the quarter, Q4, and then they pay off all their credit cards, and then they're back borrowing on those credit cards again in a month or two. I want you to change that behavior after this Q4. Set your money up in a drip account, pay your bills, pay your debts, but do it responsibly over time, and get yourself in a situation where you're not having to rely on that credit to keep your business afloat. So that was the question that we talked about on the promo. I hope that helps you. There's lots more in my book about that. So I have a gift for you. It's everything that I just talked about is in our quick start guide. You can go to this website and download that quick start guide to walk you through all of the steps. There's 5 steps that we outline there. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach me at my email, which is Cyndi@bookskeep.com. And my book is available on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. And I hope you'll pick up a copy if this feels like a way that you can start to get in control of your finances. We're also doing a promo for those folks that get the all access pass. You have an option to get a discount on the course that we have, Profit First for e-commerce sellers. It's an online course where you can take all the principles that I teach in the book. We teach them broken out in modules, in small modules, so you can go at your own pace. And we're doing a 50% discount on that for the summit. So I hope you'll take advantage of that all access pass so you can get all those good free giveaways and discounts there. Thank you for sticking with me on this. I hope you get your profit account set up right away so you can be in a great position for your Q4 that's ahead. And I wish you an amazing Q4, and I wish you peace and profits. Thank you for staying with me.